it's something me and my queer friends bond over. Like I love to go to the bar with the girls and watch a game, and I text them all the time. A lot of my gay friends actually live, up in Barrie or Bradford or Aurora or the outer lying regions where I play, and all of them we've been like, okay, when are we getting back on the ice? Or like, okay, when are we, when do we actually get to go to Chuck's and get a picture and just watch the Leafs lose, because that seems to always be how it ends. So I just think it's more than a sport for a lot of people. My name is Allie Cotter. I identify as non-binary, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a friend of Brock, so I get to watch his advocacy on Twitter and socials and bug him in socially distant times when I get to see him. And I am a massive, massive Leafs fan, unfortunately, really sad for me. And I played hockey and multiple sports my whole life, so quite close of a topic to me.
How did you get into hockey?
Yeah, so I guess growing up, I was a lot more kind of influenced or had more fun with the boys, both in my cousin groups, my sibling groups, and then my friend groups at school. And it just felt like a common thread. Everyone around me played hockey. So I kind of looked at my mom and I said, I don't want to do dance or anything like that. I'd like to learn how to skate. And my dad was actually a goalie like yourself. But he said, no, like you need to learn how to skate and be a player first, and then I'll let you be a goalie later. So obviously that never happened because once I got good, I didn't want to go play goalie. But yeah, I just friends, kind of everyone was doing it, and I loved watching it. And I went to all their games first. The moms called me a rink rat, and then finally I was like, you know what, I could do this too. I'm gonna learn how to tie them up and go on the ice.
That's wonderful. And it seems like it was like a whole family affair, and it was like,
Yeah,
family bonding almost.
I've got a big family. I've got about 40 cousins and aunts and uncles on each side, and
Oh,
so
wow.
a lot of them play hockey. Yeah.
What do you love about hockey?
I think it's really quick pace.
Yeah.
I have a pretty serious job, but I don't have too much of an attention span when I'm done doing that. So I like something that's quick and ongoing. And I just think it really shows athleticism like other sports don't. And to have that IQ at such a fast pace, I love other sports. I've played competitive soccer, baseball, and basketball as well. And I'd just say hockey is kind of the most adrenaline, most quick paced, um, high IQ, tight time, not a lot of corners, not a lot of space. I just love watching it and playing it.
How could hockey be better for you as a person who identifies non-binary and also for the queer community as a whole?
Yeah, I think I bring a little bit of a neat perspective because I actually played boys competitively till about bantam, and then switched over and did girls. Just because I did not grow, as you know, I'm 5'1", and I'm very competitive. So I continued to throw hits, which meant I took them back, and it got to a point where I couldn't do that. But I would say over the course of my life, I've watched women be more included. Like we had Sinky and Poulin and Megan Augusta, who wore my number. So she was a big girl crush of mine growing up. But now, like, it's countless. Like, they're everywhere, like Kendall Coyne and all these great advocates for women and allies of queer people in the sport. So I think really things like, the NHL players supporting the PWHA, seeing the value and the skill set of all these female players getting put on NHL teams to teach technical things like skating, where women actually do excel, or puck handling, where women do excel. I know that's not necessarily the queer community, but I find they're better allies, and it brings more vision to what someone outside of a cis straight white male can bring to the sport, and how different they can kind of, different views, different perspectives, and different skills they can interject into the game.
I love that. And but it does intersect with the queer community because there's so many more queer folks in women's hockey.
Yes.
So some of them may identify as queer, and having them take part and be part and teaching men is
Definitely
crucial and important. It's going to
Definitely.
change things.
And they do make better allies. They're more outspoken. They're not as worried. I think part of it is getting over the kind of gender binary of, okay, this is a man's sport. Like, we don't see it that way anymore. And I think it's the same if you look at varsity teams at universities, where a lot of people, that's kind of the height of where they play. Like, rugby teams are the same, women's soccer teams are kind of getting there too, where you do see a predominant amount of gay players because they just no longer care that it was a man's ruled sport or whatever
Yeah.
kind of psych around it is. So I'm actually quite glad that that's something I learned by accident, I guess, very early on. I was okay to take up space in a men's locker room till I was 15.
And if you look in professional sports, I mean, the WNBA has been leading the charge of activism and advocacy for Black Lives Matter, for queer folks, for almost every marginalized group.
Yeah. And same with, I mean, the US women's soccer team. I know Canada's soccer, they don't have as much of a platform, but I've got a lot of Black friends who played on Team Canada, and they have been doing the same thing for years, for decades. They've been screaming about it. There's women in the weightlifting space who are the same way. They just seem to, you know, understand and become better allies and use their platforms much better than, I would say, in general, stereotyping most straight white men.
What, knowing all this, what keeps you in hockey?
I think there's a genuine effort on a lot of players' parts. Like I think it's good for people like you who do much more than people like me, but there are great queer people or people who identify on the spectrum that are in the sport, and so it's advancing. And I think even this year, like you saw, you know, a minimal example, but you saw the PWHA hoodies. You saw a few of the players. I know there's a manager in the league who came out as gay last year, I believe. And he got a lot of kind of overwhelming support. I'm sure it was good for him. So I think there are people who are trying to do the right thing. It's just a matter of, you know, education and bringing them in, because there's no way there's not a gay player in that league. We know statistically. So anything we can do to make them feel supported, I think is better. But it's something me and my queer friends bond over. Like I love to go to the bar with the girls and watch a game, and I text them all the time. A lot of my gay friends actually live, you know, up in Barrie or Bradford or Aurora or the outer lying regions where I play, and all of them we've been like, okay, when are we getting back on the ice? Or like, okay, when are we, you know, when do we actually get to go to Chuck's and get a picture and just watch the Leafs lose, because that seems to always be how it ends. So I just think it's more than a sport for a lot of people.
It builds community.
100%. And it keeps community, you know, like it's been a
Yeah.
tough year to stay with your friends. So I think that's why watching hockey got so much more important to so many people this year, because there's nothing else to do. So to have that kind of, oh yeah, I'm going to text them is, I think, quite a powerful thing for sport to be able to do.
For sure. You've kind of answered this already, but I'm going to ask anyway. What gives you hope for queer people in the sport?
There's a lot of great queer players. Like it's no longer, I think we've developed the sport so it's no longer crash and bang big bodies. There's IQ that's factored in, there's speed that's factored in. The league is getting littler. And so there's no need for that stereotypical player to fit a set. You can be anyone. I hate that I don't know her name, but a goalie just got drafted to Sarnia in the OHL draft.
Yeah.
We're seeing, you know, transgender players being able to still keep that and maintain that same physicality and perform excellently. Like we never doubted they did, but the league doubted they did. So I think the power that's coming to sport, the analytic side of it that a lot of the old crash and bang people hate, is showing that really anybody can play. That's not just a slogan. And so I think we're going to see it get more diverse as we go. And if we don't, that's a kind of a failure on our part as fans, players, and really ultimately the people who run the league. But I think there's a change coming there as well.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just thank you. I think it's great that you're doing this, and I'm actually really excited to see all the people who participate. I'm pretty, I think, looped in the sports and politics world because those are my echo chambers. But I always like to follow a good person when they have a thought or a comment on something I love, which hockey is one of them. So I'm excited to hear all the stories and see who I can support through different initiatives as they kind of try to change the game. Because I'm a bit more of a passive sports enthusiast, but I think there's more I could do to help. So hopefully I can find someone through your work, and obviously you support you in doing your work too.
Well, thank you so much, Allie, and thank you for, you know, taking up space that's needed in this sport, and we need more people like you.
Thanks, Brock. I appreciate it. You too.